folks, Free Play Frank. Today I got a video showing you how to worm your goats. That means getting rid of external and internal parasites. And then I'm going to play a cool song from 1979, Cruel to Be Kind by Nick Lowe. Now my shout out tonight goes to Appalacia Homestead with Patara. Now Patara and her family have a farm in Tennessee. They raise goats and chickens and they do gardening and health and fitness videos and lots of really cool stuff on there. Very interesting, very inspirational. So make sure you check out her channel. It's a good channel. You'll like it. Alright guys, let's do this. Okay, so let's talk about deworming your goats. Now by worms I mean internal and external parasites. That can be everything from like the barber pole worm or tapeworms or roundworms, which live inside the goat's gut and can cause the goat some serious health issues if not controlled. Now most goats will develop immunity to parasites, but some of them don't. Some of them you have to give them chemical wormers to get rid of it. And there's several herbal worming products on the market that I've tried. One of them, I tried Molly's Herbal, and I did notice a difference, but only in the healthy goats. They seem to stay healthy and maybe build up some resistance to it. But if I had a goat with a heavy parasite load, it didn't make any difference. I had to go to the chemical wormer to get rid of it. So basically what you do is there's two different ways of giving the wormer. One is orally and the other is with a needle and an injection. And I usually do the oral wormers. And sometimes you have, there's one type that it's ivermectin injectable, it's called. And it seems to work really well for certain types of external parasites. Like if they get mange, or goats get a condition that's looks like mange, it makes their fur get all scruffy and then they don't want to lose their winter fur, so then they'll be like halfway into summer with still long scraggly hair. And when they get that one, the vet will usually recommend an ivermectin injectable. They also have ivermectin drench, and drench means to give orally, and that works quite well for all kinds of intestinal parasites. And there's another one called valbazin, which is also a oral, which works quite well for internal parasites. And of course the internal parasite medicines work for external parasites to some degree as well. There's another product called Bosporon, which is for external parasites, fleas and so on, and all you do with that is you just dribble it onto the back of their neck where they can't lick. You read the instructions on the bottle, but I believe it's something like 3 milliliters maximum per animal, but that's like a 100-pound animal. A little smaller animal you'd put less than that. I did that to my goats a couple weeks ago, and there's only a couple that I've had to give a second dose to. Isn't that right, Bella? But anyways, you guys gotta understand the thing about worming is that it's a do or die kind of a thing, and it's like the lesser of two evils, because all goats have parasites. They all get intestinal parasites to some degree, and like I said earlier, a lot of them develop an immunity to it as they get older, and then you don't have to worm them. Like Brownie's like that, and Bella's pretty good too. I went years without worming Bella, but she's 13 now, and earlier this spring I had to give Bella a treatment. It lasted a couple of weeks, but as you can see, she made a full recovery. Her coat is nice and she's got lots of energy. She's eating with the other goats. And so the thing about worming is that if you don't catch it early enough, like you have to pay attention to your goats and you pay attention to their daily routines. Like usually what they'll do is they'll be staying together in their group eating, and they'll have their tails up in the air, and if you start coming towards them, they'll move away. Like my goats are so tame. Like see Bella, she's been here for 12 years, so she's not at all concerned with me. But if strangers come around, they'll run away. But anyways, your goats will walk away from you or even run away from you with their tails up. And that's normal. That's what they're supposed to do. That's how healthy animals react. So if you see a goat that's not running and staying with the herd, if you see a goat that's standing off by themselves or laying down and doesn't want to get up or doesn't want to eat, it's almost certain that they've got parasites. Though sometimes it could be that they ate too much grain or too much rich foods and their stomach is out of balance. So sometimes they'll recover from it on their own. But especially another symptom of it is if they've got diarrhea. If you see a goat that's got diarrhea, and if the diarrhea is a bright green color in the early spring, that's usually just from the spring plants. But if they get diarrhea in the middle of the summertime or the middle of the winter time when there's no fresh plants, then it's probably a heavy parasite load. And another thing that you need to do is you pull down the goat's eyelid and you look to see what color it is. It should be a pink color. Like it's never as pink as my own eyelids. It's like a light pink color. And often what I'll see is it'll be pink near the outside of the eyelid but get lighter farther inside the eyelid, which is normal for my goats. Like my goats always seem to have that type of coloring to their eyelids. But if it's white, if the eyelid is white, that means that you've got a heavy internal parasite load. And it's usually a barber pole worm. A barber pole worm will attach itself to the inside of the goat's intestines and it'll drink their blood. Like they're tiny little worms. You can't see them. You got to look in a magnifying microscope to see them. But they get millions of them things because the eggs hatch every 10 to 15 days. And the larva will attach themselves to the inside of the goat's stomach and drink their blood. And they get so many of those worms building up in there that it drinks enough of their blood that they start to go anemic. And that's why they get the white eyelids and white lips. And you look inside their mouth, it'll be all white. And usually by that time they're usually skinny and they're usually weak and they don't want to eat and they're sitting around or laying around. And when don't let it get to that extent, guys. As soon as you see the goat's eyelids start to get white when they're still up and walking around and they're still active, that's the time. Like it's like if there's diarrhea just starting, that's the time when you want to get on it with the wormer. And what I would recommend to do is to take a sample of the diarrhea down to your vet and have it analyzed, and they'll tell you what kind of worms it is and what medicine to use. But after a while you'll get to know what worms are on your land and you'll know which ones work, because there's only 3 or 4 types of wormers that we can get here in Canada. There's probably others in other countries that I'm not aware of. But I've tried all 4 of them, and valbazen seems to work about the best, with ivermectin drench being a close second. Safeguard or Panicure, I haven't had any luck with that. I used that the first 2 years I had goats and it worked okay, but it hasn't worked since, so I haven't used that in many years. There's another one called Baycox, and that you give that to baby goats when they get coccidia. And the symptoms of that is diarrhea and laying around being weak and not wanting to eat or not wanting to nurse. And usually what you have to do there is you'll give the Baycox and then a week later you'll have to give them valbazen, because it takes two wormers to get rid of that in some cases. In some cases it'll work with just the Baycox. But since it's a baby goat, they can get dehydrated from the diarrhea very quickly and die in a day or two. Whereas adult goats, it'll take weeks for them to get dehydrated to the point where they're going to die. So don't wait that long, guys. Keep an eye on your goats every day, and if you notice any differences in their routine, then check it out. Another thing you got to be careful of with worming is that some of the medicines will cause pregnant goats to abort their babies. Like ivermectin injectable is really bad for that, and I've had that problem with valbazin as well. But I believe valbazin will only abort the baby in the first trimester. Don't quote me on that. So if you've got a doe that's pregnant, and if she's not like suffering from diarrhea and really white eyelids, I wouldn't try to worm her until after the baby's born, and then as soon as the babies are born, that's when you worm them. It's very difficult to tell if a goat is pregnant. The only surefire way is to have an ultrasound. But they charge money for that. The vets charge money for that, and where I am, I think it's $100 if you bring the goat in there for them to do. So you need to make the call, guys. You need to understand that you have to get on the worming in a timely manner, and if you don't think that your goat is going to make it all the way till she has her babies, then you can nurse it along with, like, try to use the herbal wormers. And there's another thing you can do if you get a goat that's really weak and she's got the white eyelids, and you give them an injection of iron and vitamin B12 every day for 5 days, and then once a week for the rest of the month after you worm them. But you can start that before you worm them if they're really weak, because there's a chance that if they're really weak, they won't survive the treatment. So that's what I would do. And then I've got some follow-up videos here where I showed some of my goats and some of the things I did, and I make a drink for them with molasses and some other ingredients that also helps boost their energy and helps them, because you got to be careful of that, guys. If the goat is really weak and you give it the medicine, sometimes that'll kill the goat. And there's another issue that I've had problems with the barber pole worm, is when you give usually when you give ivermectin injectable, it'll make the worms all detach from the inside of the goat's stomach all at the same time, and the goat will bleed to death if it's a heavy infestation from the inside. So what you do is you take vegetable oil in a drenched syringe. You get one of those, like, you get a big syringe without a needle, the oral type of syringe, and you put about a couple ounces of vegetable oil in there. It could be Crisco oil or Mazola oil or peanut oil, or any of those types of oils like that for cooking. And then you squirt it down the goat's mouth, the same as you would drenching them with the wormer, right after you worm them. And that'll give you a fighting chance because the oil will coat the inside of their stomach and it'll stop the bleeding. I've done that and it's worked quite well. But most of the time you don't have to do that if the goat's still walking around and eating. It's only when you get those really sick goats, when you've left it too long. But that's why I'm making this video for you guys, because I don't want you to leave it too long. I don't want your goats to be laying on the ground with diarrhea for days and you don't know what to do. Because 99% of the time, when a goat gets that weak, unless there's something they could have been poisoned with, like antifreeze, or so the chances that the goat is eating something poisonous that's going to kill them is far less than the chance that the goat just has a heavy parasite load. Well, the exception of that would be laurel bushes and rhododendron and several other plants like that. A goat can die overnight if they eat those, if they eat enough of it, and sometimes even from one leaf. And that'll be very similar, but you won't have the white eyelids though. You'll still have pink eyelids if the goat was healthy when it ate the poisonous stuff. So there are some kinds of parasites that don't really cause the goat to get anemic. They just give them diarrhea, like coccidia, I believe, is like that. But that usually only affects baby goats, and the diarrhea makes them anemic. So anyways, just be aware of that, and especially be aware of the fact that whether your goats are pregnant or not when you're going to worm them, the best thing to do is keep your bucks separate from your does. It can be devastating losing animals or not knowing what you're doing. So making this video for you guys because I don't want to see that happen to you or your animals. I've had to live through that, and I've had to learn the hard way. When there's one more thing that I want to discuss about this, it's extremely important as well, that I unfortunately learned the hard way. And that's storing your medicine. Now there's a temperature range. It's usually between 15 and 30 degrees Celsius. You can do the conversion to convert that to Fahrenheit. So you need to keep your medicine within that range. Don't let it get over 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Like, keep it in the basement or keep it in a cool part of your house with a thermometer so that you can monitor the temperature. You don't necessarily have to keep it in the fridge because that might be too cold. Like 15 degrees Celsius is like a low room temperature kind of a thing. Hi, sweetheart. So make sure you pay attention to that as well. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up, guys, and I've got a couple short videos I made here about worming the goats now. Okay, here's a good example of a goat that has a bit of a worm problem. See how she's got the fat chin? Her chin is all kind of swollen up, her face is kind of swollen. And if you look at her backside here, you can see that. I'm going to grab a hold of her here for you. Here, come here, sweetheart. Gotcha. Okay, it's alright. Alright. Okay, so I got my 6 mil here of ivermectin drench. And all you do here is you just squirt it down her throat. Come here, sweetheart. Here's the little goat that I treated 6 days ago with 6 mil of ivermectin drench. So let's check and see how pink her eyelid is. Her eyelid was pretty white. Now, see, it's starting to get pink around the edge. You can see she's starting to get color back in her eyelids again. That means the worms are gone. They're not sucking her blood in her stomach anymore. So that she's starting to grow new blood cells again. Because when they're young like this one's about 2 years old, they can recover. But when they get older, you have to give them that iron and multivitamin for a week. And then after a week, you give it once a week for a month. See this little goat here, you can see she's still got a fat face. I gave her 6 mil of ivermectin drench 3 days ago. And she's got a fat face. And see if I can show you here. You look at her eyelid, and her eyelid is white. See? It's still white even 3 days after. So what I'm going to do is I have a syringe that has 2.5 cc of dextrose iron and 2.5 cc of multivitamin. And I'm going to give her that 5 times over the next week. Then I'll show you what she looks like. I make this drink, and it's got a teaspoon of blackstrap molasses, teaspoon of corn syrup, some Himalayan pink salt, 2 crushed up 1,000 milligram B12 tablets, and some baking soda. And this helps with their energy and helps get their blood back. See, she likes it. Look, she'll drink this whole thing. And as soon as she gets done drinking this, and we'll look at her eyelids again. It's been about, she had her 4 or 5 days of the injections with the iron and the vitamins. And this drink, I haven't given her this drink for about 2 days now because she's doing fine. But today I looked at her eyes and they still look kind of light. See, look, she drank almost all of it. We'll put the rest in her water pail there, and she can drink it when she feels like it. Okay, let's see what her eyelids look like. I don't like to grab them by their horns, but I just want to see what color her eyelids are here. Oops, come here, sweetheart. It's okay. Come here. Yeah, it's skin colored now. Can you see that? It's got a bit of color coming back. So I think I'm going to put her on the iron and B12 again for another week. Because this one wasn't responding to the ivermectin drench. I waited 4 days and she still had the fat face, so I gave her same dose with valbazin, and she responded to that, and that got rid of the fat face, and she's eating well. She wants to go outside. She climbs up on here, but I'm not ready to let her out yet. I'm going to keep her in here a couple more days, like another maybe 4 or 5 days, and I'm going to give her the injections again, and then we'll check on her eyelids again. Okay, she's had her injections now for 5 days. This is 6th day. So let's see what her eyelids look like now. Come on, sweetheart. Come on. Let's see. Oh, she's got some pink happening there. It's about the same as my finger. If you can see how pink my finger is, it's about the same as that. So I'm going to go ahead now and let her back out to rejoin the rest of the goats.
Well, I can't take another heartache, though you say you're my friend. I'm at my wit's end. Say your love is bona fide, but that don't coincide. The things that you do when I ask you to be nice. You say you gotta be cruel to be kind in the right measure. Cruel to be kind, it's a very good sign. Cruel to be kind, it means that I love you, baby. Gotta be cruel to be kind. Well, I do my best to understand, dear, but you still mystify, and I wanna know why. Pick myself up off the ground to have you knock me back down again and again. And when I ask you to explain, you say you gotta be cruel to be kind in the right measure. Cruel to be kind, it's a very good sign. Cruel to be kind, it means that I love you, baby. Be cruel to be kind. Ooh. Well, I do my best to understand, dear, but you still mystify, and I wanna know why. Pick myself up off the ground to have you knock me back down again and again. And when I ask you to explain, you say you gotta be cruel to be kind in the right measure. Cruel to be kind, it's a very good sign. Cruel to be kind means that I love you, baby. Gotta be cruel to be kind in the right measure. Cruel to be kind, it's a very good sign. Cruel to be kind means that I love you, baby. Gotta be cruel to be kind in the right measure. Cruel to be kind, it's a very, very, very good. Cruel to be kind, it means that I love you, baby. Gotta be cruel to be kind. Okay, here's another classic from 1979, folks. Cruel to be Kind by Nick Lowe. And thanks for joining me. I hope you guys had fun this week, and we'll see you next week. Take care.